Hotep, greetings. How y'all doing today? On this episode, I want to speak about Cain and Abel. It's a story that, on the surface is about two brothers from the same mother, same father, and they get into it. One thing leads to another, and one of the particular brothers gets jealous, and he decides that he's going to kill his brother. He decides he's going to murder his brother, and this is supposed to be one of the first biblical stories where murder comes up. So this is supposed to be like the origin of murder when you study about Cain and Abel. Now, Cain and Abel is, of course, is more to it than that. I'm going to get into some of the metaphysics of Cain and Abel and some of the, I guess, real life history of Cain and Abel real briefly on this video. Um, Now, firstly, dealing with the metaphysics of it, which you can probably get this type of message in any church or what may have you. This is a story dealing with jealousy, and not only jealousy, but this is a story dealing with envy amongst kin, amongst blood. And this is a story basically dealing with sacrifice, even. You guys hear about doing blood sacrifices and people that sacrifice their brother to get higher up or to get more fame and fortune. This is essentially where all this comes from, and I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But essentially, yeah, it's just about jealousy. It's this thing where, especially back then and even going into now, when you have people that are blood related, especially niggas. I'm just gonna be straight up, because I grew up around niggas in the streets, and I'm sure this goes down with white folks too, and I'm not excluding them out, but I'm speaking from my perspective. As you guys can see, we're pretty dark brothers, so and like it's the same thing with niggas in the hood. Like they find out you doing good, or they find out you. Uh, I'm going to get into what the story really means, so I really don't want to spill the beans on that. But essentially, what it is that they find out that you're the chosen one, if you will, and they find out that you're the chosen one of whatever it is. You may be chosen to go hoop and go play basketball and get this big contract to make $1 million. You may be chosen to be this big time doctor. You may be chosen to go to college and get your doctor's degree or your master's degree or whatever the case may be, and you're going to have niggas that's jealous of you. You may be chosen to be an MC in hip-hop, and you're going to have niggas that's jealous of you. And they're going to get to the point where if the bigger you get and the more you do, people will want to just kill you. Literally. People will want to kill you just because of the fact that you have been accepted onto a different path from the path that you guys may have grew up around. You grew up in the hood. You rob people together. You beat up people together. You mess with the same girls together. You did all of this stuff together. But then one day, you decide my path is going this way. I'm finna go that way, and niggas from the hood like, nah, you can't. You can't just leave and go that way. What happened to this? The hood stuff, and you ain't keeping it real, and X, Y, Z. See, all of that's just psychological warfare, because at the end of the day, they want your spot. That's what it's all about. They want your spot, and this goes into past jealousy. Then that's when envy starts to come up. See, envy, I've said this many a times, and I said I was going to do a video on envy, but envy is deeper than jealousy. See, jealousy just is like, okay, I'm upset, because of the fact that so-and-so has this good-looking girlfriend, or I'm upset because so-and-so has this good-looking boyfriend, or I'm upset because so-and-so has this car, and ooh, I wish I had that car, and it's, you may feel a little bit bitter, but it's whatever, you go on about your life. But envy is deeper than that. See, envy is like to the point where it's like a person may know that they can never have what you have, and they can never get what you got. So essentially what they're going to do is that they're going to get to the point where they will want to murder you. They want to up that burner on you, They want to come shank you or something like that to stop you from getting what's yours, really. What you were born, your inheritance. This is when they talk about sacrifice and blood sacrifice. This is dealing with the inheritance. See, many people don't realize that's what the story of Cain and Abel is really about. See, Abel was really the one that was received the inheritance or the covenant, of which I'm going to go into in a second. And Cain didn't get it, so he sacrificed his brother. These people that's doing these sacrifices, they aren't the legitimate heirs to the throne. They're not the real kings. They, essentially, like one of my teachers would say, they window dressing, they fronting, they acting like they the king. Like my man Hov said on the Holy Grail album, going back to one of those albums, he talked about Picasso. He was like, "Oh, what a feeling, Picasso, baby." And he said, "Oh, what a feeling." See, that song really is talking about, Picasso's baby, the one that really isn't the real live artist or the real live king. This is just you living in the image, living off of the spoils of war or whatever, what the king built up or whatever, what really belonged to the king. And you basically, it's like you driving in a stolen car. You driving in a whip that ain't even yours, B. So that's what's really, going on. It's like that wasn't your path. You wasn't the one that received the inheritance. So since you didn't receive it, or since you can't get it legitimately, you're like, I'm gonna kill this nigga, man. Or even it goes down with females too. And I'm realized that it's passed down. When you study inheritance, it's passed down, from father to son type of thing. I understand that, or grandfather to son type of thing, and it's usually something, dealing with males, but females have start building up empires now too, so they have inheritance structure as well. Females are passing stuff down to their daughters and things like that. So say, for instance, you a female, or you may marry into an empire, marry a king or something like that, and you may, enjoy being with this king or whatever. You're gonna have females hating on you. And a lot of you can't deal with the pressure, so it's like you're gonna have to decide if you're gonna side with the people that's hating and conspire against the king, so you can sacrifice the king, so y'all can all just live off of his estate and his empire, or you gonna have to decide, nah, I'm gonna stand up and do what's right, and we're gonna, fight off these robber barons, is what they are. So that's what it really comes down to. So this is what the story of Cain and Abel was really truly about. See, Cain and Abel were being tested. And they were being tested by this guy named Melchizedek. And Melchizedek had a sacred order. A lot of my Nuwapians, shout out to my Nuwapians out there, they know about the ancient order, the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, old time order. A lot of us Moors, Nuwapian Moors, of course, know about this. And a lot of, not even just Nuwapians, you have a lot of people in the New Age community that know about Melchizedek. You even have a big-time New Age teacher that calls himself Melchizedek. Well, Melchizedek, what he's saying is that he took on an incarnation of Melchizedek. He possesses the spirit of Melchizedek. That's essentially what he's saying when he calls himself, he's naming himself after Melchizedek. So what happens is that you can become an initiated Melchizedek, where it's a ritual that you can do to become a Melchizedek and actually become that. So Melchizedek has his own secret order. This entity is what it really is. Melchizedek is an entity that people can take on once they go through certain initiations, and this is why he set up this order. So when I say he, of course there was a physical being that set up the order of Melchizedek. He was representing the entity Melchizedek, the spirit Melchizedek. This is why in the Bible Melchizedek is said to, he never died. He had no end of days, is what they say about Melchizedek. And you see Melchizedek, he comes up in different parts of the Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, teaching different prophets. This is because it's, for one level, it's an entity, but then secondly, once you get initiated into this order, you can begin to learn how to live forever, become an immortal. When I say live forever, you can live as long as you want to live. You decide, okay, I'm tired of living now, so I'm going to die. So this is why in the Bible you read about a lot of, Methuselah and even Adam. Adam lived to be like 300-400 years old. You're reading about real life physical people. The stories are metaphysical, but there are physical people that live right now on the planet, from India. There's people that are 300-400 years old right now, on the planet. They're not going to tell you about it. In America, they got these people that come on the Good Morning America show, and they're like, oh, Susie's 99. I mean, that's cool. That's a long time, too. I respect that. But they're not going to tell you about the man over in India, or, the person over in Sudan that's like 350. 250. They ain't gonna tell you about them, because either they don't know or they don't want to tell because they don't want you to know that you can live for as long as you want to live. That's what being an immortal is about. So they would get initiated into this order of immortals called the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek. And essentially what happened was that Cain wasn't accepted. He didn't get the covenant. He didn't get the inheritance. As the Bible says, he wasn't giving his best. He gave an offering, but it was just like whatever. He wasn't living up to his fullest potential. He could have did more. But he was too busy worrying about what his brother was doing, you see, so he didn't do what he was. That's why he didn't get in. He wasn't living on the path that he was supposed to walk. He was worried about the king or Abel. So he slew his brother. Like they say, his jealous anger pushed him into doing a sacrifice, pushed him to murder his brother, or whatever. And that's the story or whatever, not trying to rub it in, but it has a historical background too as well that's, not as, I guess you can say, like, judgmental or opinionated as my earlier part of this video. But the second part of it is just that the group of people that eventually, because Cain wasn't killed after that, he was just banished, which is interesting. They didn't kill Cain, they didn't murder Cain because of what he did. He was just banished, and he went into what's called the land of Nod, and parts of Canaan land. And this is where you get a group of people. See, there's a group of people that represent this. They didn't make it into there's different levels of metaphysics. And they didn't make it into the higher up levels. They didn't just make it, but their teacher, which was Cain, eventually, this became what's called the ancient Canaanite people. These are, your people that live in parts of the Middle East. These are your people that live in parts of India. These are the Canaanites. These are your people that eventually migrated up into Europe. Some of them stayed in parts of Africa. But you got to remember that the story of Cain and Abel actually took place in the Sudan, and which is really the true Garden of Eden in Ethiopia, in that area. That was the real, true, live, I guess you could say the original Africa, if you will. And once, it's metaphysical because, this actually happened. So once this particular group of people that represented the people of Cain, they didn't get all of the knowledge. These people that were from Ethiopia and all that, these were the people that built the pyramids in Egypt. They went up into what's called Kemet and built the pyramids. They were originally some of them even from down in South Africa, and migrated up into Egypt to build the pyramids. And there's pyramids in Sudan too as well. So these are your original, like some people call them East Africans, or, Ether Utopians, if you will. These are the highest metaphysical beings on the planet, and the orders that they belong to. These are your highest beings or whatever. And then you have the beings of Cain. And this is what Abel was trying to get initiated into, essentially, before I get to Cain. So Abel, he was trying to get initiated to the higher school. They had other initiates. It's not like the school didn't keep going on. Abel just didn't make it because he got killed. And they probably was trying to teach him metaphysics so that he can get out of getting sacrificed or getting murdered, so he didn't make it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Cain, now let's talk about Cain. The Canaanites have knowledge. Cain had a lot of knowledge. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, he did what he did. But he still had a lot of knowledge, and he took, this is what became the Kama Sutra, this is what became some of Taoism, this is what became some of Buddhism. This all comes from the children of Cain. This is the more aggressive seed on the planet that didn't, see, Abel was passive. He didn't even have murder in him. And the Canaanites, these are your aggressive beings. This is you're just dealing with nature here. So it's not to say it's just good or bad. You just got to know there's beasts in the hood. It's like lions and tigers and shit like that in the hood. And then you got lambs, passive people in the hood, laid back people. These are your cats that go to college and try to get out. And you got to know what's your nature. You got to decide what's your path. There's no right and wrong. If you want to be a hater and go out here and try to murk people, do your thing. Do you have a group of people that's a mixture of both too as well? Watch out for them. These are your gatewalkers. These are the people that's cool, calm, and collective, but at the same time, you never know what they may do to you. At the same time, you know what I'm saying? So it's different groups, different natures of people or whatever. So the Canaanites, they started to teach some of the knowledge that they got from the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek. They started to teach this freely, and this is why, they taught like Kama Sutra, sexual magic in general freely. Wicca, things of that nature. They taught this freely, and the initiations weren't as hard to pass. The rites of passage wasn't as hard to pass to get into. So this is why it's more popular. Astrology and stuff like that is more popular in the lands of Canaan. But over in Africa, you think they don't study astrology, but they do. But it's more of a secret. Even still to this day, there are orders out there, that people classes I've sat in from people that were straight up with dashiki, real dashikis, not from the corner store, but dashikis made by sisters right over in East Africa that taught us like about stuff that they've learned being initiated into these orders a long time ago. So very interesting story or whatever. So this is what the story of Cain and Abel is about. It's I gave you the metaphysical aspect, the teaching aspect, and then just the aspect of the history of it. So your like I said, your Canaanites, they mixed up the doctrine or whatever. Some of them ate meat. See, to get into the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, you have to become a vegetarian. This is why some humans have some bigger canines than others. Canaanites, Cain, dealing with fangs, and dealing with people that eat more meat, or if they come from a bloodline of people that eat more meat, their canines are a little bit more sharper. These are they have to live off of blood of animals and things of that nature. And that's cool if that's what they into, so that's why the doctrine is mixed up. But here, I'm not saying people in Africa don't eat meat, I'm not saying that. But I'm talking about people that are in this order, that's initiating this order. These are your vegetarians, these are your vegans. I'm not saying what's right or what's wrong or what's better or worse. It's what works for you. So this is where you get all of this type of stuff from or whatever. So there's a lot of initiations that you have to go through to get to the point of being initiated to this high order or whatever. It's very strict, deep rites of passage, very disciplined type of order. In a lot of ways, it's kind of passive. Being a vegetarian makes you passive in some ways. So you have to be a little bit more passive to make it into this type of order, not as aggressive. So this is why you had beings, like I said, that went off and started their own orders based off of the little knowledge that they had. They were pushed into this land of what you call Nod in the Bible, which is really just anything outside of the Garden of Eden over in the Middle East and going all the way over into India or whatever. They started to move into those lands, and they changed the doctrine and started to teach it more freely. And there's a really good documentary that you can get to prove what I'm saying about the fact that Asians, because this was going into the fact that Asians come from Africa. And there's this good documentary that I used to have. It's called Asians in Africa. Or, I'm sorry, African influence in Asia. It's about how Africans moved out of Africa, went into Asia, and began to build pyramids. They have pyramids in Japan, underwater. They got pyramids all over, and they begin to, it's a certain group of Africans that moved into China and places like that and began to spread their seed. So people don't realize that, we're related to Chinese people. We're related to all of them, It's just that as time went on, we started to mix with other extraterrestrial experiments happened and things of that nature, and the blood was mixed. But we all one at the end of the day, just different ways of demonstrating knowledge. But Sudan and Ethiopia and all of that was always the center. This was always the Mecca, the true Mecca of knowledge. And this is truly what the story of Cain and Abel represents. So I hope you learned something from this video. Brief spill. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. We'll go ahead and shut down. And until my next, as always, I'll leave you on Hotep. Namaste. Peace.